Rails Across America by Raina Korb. Moving west, in May 1869, the nation's first transcontinental railroad was finished. The railroad stretched from coast to coast. Now people could travel across the country in 10 days or less. Before 1869, people had only a few ways to travel west. Some sailed around the tip of South America or to Panama and back up along the Pacific coast. Others rode across the country in covered wagons. Those methods of transportation took many months. Travel today. Today, people have many choices when they travel across the country. Many choose to fly because it is the fastest way. Others drive their cars, take a bus, or go by train. The Transcontinental Railroad, a transcontinental railroad, was first successful in 1832. However, many people thought the idea was impossible. At that time, the longest railroad track was only 136 miles long. During the 1800s, many people believed that the United States would expand to the Pacific Ocean. In 1848, the country gained land in the Southwest after winning a war against Mexico. California became a state in 1850. In 1853, the United States government sent engineers to study possible routes for a transcontinental railroad, while Congress argued about which route was best. A railroad engineer named Theodore Judah took action. In 1861, Judah convinced four California business people to form the Central Pacific Railroad Company. They became known as the Big Four. In 1862, Congress passed the Pacific Railway Act. It gave the Central Pacific the right to lay tracks going eastward. The government also created the Union Pacific Railroad Company to lay tracks going westward. The two lines would meet somewhere in the middle. Building the railroad. In January 1863, Central Pacific officers and workers met in Sacramento, California. Many steps went into building the railroad. Engineers chose the best path. Workers cleared away trees and stones. They placed crosties, or wooden beams that connect and support the rails of the railroad into the ground. Then they hammer iron rails onto the crosties with spikes. On the Central Pacific Railroad, the Central Pacific had hundreds of miles of track to lay, but not enough workers. The work was hard and dangerous. By early 1865, only a few hundred Irish immigrants had jobs as a railroad crew. The Central Pacific solved its problem by hiring Chinese immigrants. By the time the railroad was finished, about 10,000 Chinese immigrants had done most of the works. Crossing the Sierra Nevada, the Central Pacific crews faced the hardest part of their job after they left Sacramento. They had to lay tracks across the Sierra Nevada. Crews worked 6 days a week. They blew up cliffs and dug tunnels through rock. Crews used picks shovels, axes, animals, wheelbarrows, and gunpowder to do the job. The winter of 1866 to 1867 was harsh. There were freezing temperatures, piles of snow, and dozens of storms. The men lived in tunnels underneath the snow or in shacks on the mountain. That winter, the track moved forward only about 8 inches a day. Work on the Union Pacific. By the end of 1863, the Union Pacific Rail Line reached as far west as Omaha, Nebraska. The Civil War delayed more work until 1865. Workers on the Union Pacific faced problems from American Indians or Native Americans who lived in the region. The railroad tracks ran through buffalo hunting grounds, causing the American Indians to attack the railroad crews. The race to Utah. By 1868, the Central Pacific Rail Line extended eastward from the Sierra Nevada. The rail lines made by both companies were now on flat land. Workers on both sides rushed to complete the most track. In 1869, both companies were working on tracks that did not connect. The government forced officers from the two companies to meet. The officers picked a spot where the railroad tracks would join, Promontory, Utah. The two railroad crews now faced to the first to reach Promontory summit. One day, workers from the Central Pacific laid 6 miles of track. Soon after, the Union Pacific crews laid 7 miles of track in one day. On April 28, 1869, a Central Pacific crew worked from sunrise until 7 o'clock at night. It set a record by completing more than 10 miles of track in one day. On April 30, the Central Pacific workers reached Promontory and won the race to the end. The next day, the Union Pacific crews came within sight of Promontory. The transcontinental road was almost done. In 6 years, workers had built 1,776 miles of track. Done. The railroad companies planned a big celebration on Utah. On May 10, 1869, only one more spike was needed to connect the two rail lines. Workers, officers, reporters, and guests gathered at the site. The last spike was made of solid gold. The news went out. Done. People around the country joined in the celebration. They made speeches, held parades, and rang bells. Traveling out west, people from all over the country wanted to ride along the new road. Each week, one train headed west and another headed east. The Transcontinental Railroad opened up the United States to tourists, travel reporters, and people looking for jobs. Soon, even more railroads connected communities from coast to coast.